Today we actually have a full interior cleaning and odor removal at the first location. Now I don't know if you can tell behind me, but we're actually at an apartment location. So in this video, I'm specifically going to focus on how do you manage working at an apartment? How do you get into the apartment? How do you talk with the customer? What are the nuances you have to watch out for when working at an apartment? Because it is much different being at an apartment versus a home location. It takes a lot more time. It can be a bit more confusing to find the customer's vehicle. That's what we'll specifically focus on this video. If you're interested in terms of pricing, we quoted the customer, I'm looking at the software here, we quoted the customer $220 to $260 for the full interior cleaning, and then $100 for the odor treatment. And it's on a 2017 Nissan Rogue. All right, so this is in real time. Lex is pulling up to the call box. The customer had told us, and it's in our notes here, that when we arrive, we're gonna punch in a number. It's going to call the customer. The customer will then buzz us in, and the gate is going to open, and we have the exact instructions on where the vehicle is located, what apartment unit, and what turns and things we have to do to reach the customer's vehicle.
So the vehicle's already been cleaned, but we're gonna go ahead and do another thorough cleaning, especially on all the fabrics, as that holds the most odor. So we're gonna encapsulate the carpeting, floor mats, and seats, and then I'm gonna follow that up with a chemical deodorizer. Steam that in the fibers, let it dry for as long as it can, and then we're gonna follow it up with an ozone treatment for about 30 minutes.
And just a quick announcement, as I've been mentioning in the past few videos, that on February 19th, this shirt in both black and white will be releasing for a limited supply. I don't have a clue if I'll be doing another run because I'm very skeptic on this like selling out anyhow. So February 19th, a limited supply of these shirts will be released. So that's going to be your first part. When you're talking to the customer, whether it's through text, email, or phone call, and they give you the address, you want to ask two things. Is this a home location or an apartment location? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, that's it. If it's a home address, good. If it's an apartment address, good. You just want to know, because even at a home address, there might be extra instructions that you need in order to find the location. Next thing you want to ask, in whatever method you're talking to them, is, are there any specific instructions once we arrive? Or something like that. Are there any specific instructions? Is there anything we need to know to access the home or apartment? And that's when they'll tell you, oh yes, XYZ, XYZ. So it's very important, because you don't want to just show up, whether it's a home or apartment, and you're gonna ask, and there's a gate code, and you're like, oh snap, I forgot, there's a gate code. What do I do? You're gonna call the customer. Maybe the customer doesn't pick up. Maybe that it takes a bit, a bit of time for them to call you back. So you want to know everything ahead of time before you get started. Now, in terms of the gate code or something for a home location, you'll get better at knowing which location areas might require a gate code. That, and when they give you the address, just quickly do a quick Google search on it to see where it's located. But regardless of that, if you just ask, is there any specific instructions to access the home or apartment, they'll give it to you. Now, if like with this one, we enter the call box, we enter the number to the call box, it calls the customer buzzes in. Other times, it might just open up the gate code and they'll let us in. So one is, know if there's a gate code, if you're in an apartment, and then two, where is the vehicle located? It can either be that the customer is going to come out and say, hey, I'll meet you at the front gate, just follow me to the vehicle. Or it might be, hey, I'm on units, 123, parking spot 7. Or it's going to be, hey, when you come in, take a left, take a right, go all the way around on the back side, red car next to the trash can, that's going to be me. That's usually one of those three is going to happen in order to find the customer's vehicle. Now, as you can see, we're in a pretty open parking space. Sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't, where it's just the parking lot is basically empty. We're not close to the apartment unit, as far as like right on the very primary parking spots. A lot of times though, especially when we go into the city or to the more populated apartment units, like where there's a bunch of apartments, there's almost no parking spots, or it might be that the car is located very close to the apartment units, and because we're so close, because there's so many vehicles around the customer's vehicle, we don't have space, or there's people walking around. So what you want to do is you want to drive around the perimeter or look around the perimeter and find an open spot. Don't stay centered in the parking lot. Crowded cars, people, and you'll be annoyance to the residents. So when you get to an apartment unit, if you're not in a situation like this, which this is like super ideal, super easy to manage, but when you're in a more crowded area, literally just drive around the perimeter a little bit and you'll find more open spots. What's even better is that you'll find the open spots away from the residents. So it's usually like in the back where there's no one, more parking spots, no one around you. You want to find those spots. It just makes life way easier. Now, another setback that you might encounter is that, let's say this is the only area, make believe, obviously there's a bunch of space, but let's just say where we're at all the way over there is the only area that's available for the customer and for you to do the work, okay? So let's say that the customer is actually on the opposite side of the apartment complex, on the highest floor, furthest away from where you're doing the work. So that means if the customer isn't present when you get to the apartment and they have to come meet you at the vehicle, it can take 5-10 minutes for them from where they're at. Obviously they're not like rushing to you, they're gonna take their time and just kind of go at a leisurely pace. It's gonna take 5-10 minutes before they get to you. Same thing when you call them back out, it could take 5-10-15 minutes, especially if they're busy doing something. So it can easily start in just waiting for them to get to you and then waiting for them to get to you once you're done. It can add 15, 20, 25 minutes. I mean, the worst one that we've had, it took about 30 minutes from us getting there at 9 a.m. to finally starting and opening up the doors and working on the vehicle. We started at 9:30. Not all most of the apartments are going to be fine in terms of finding the customer, locating a spot to work on the customer's vehicle, but there will be times where the apartment complex, the parking garage, how it's set up, it's just so awkward to do the work that it's going to take time to find a spot where you're comfortable, there's enough space to actually get started and get working. So sometimes when you're at an apartment complex, you won't have this benefit of having 4 spots that you can take up, right? Because we're doing this one, that one, and then basically that one. So when that happens, sometimes you will fall into the situations where like you only have those 2 spots right there, and it makes it very, very difficult, and it's not just satisfying or not ideal to work. Now you can do other things, and maybe you can look around, and maybe if there's like an outskirts street that you can work on, maybe that's possible. We've had times where the parking is pretty tight, but there's like a street or some street around the apartment where it's like it's a dead end and it's empty, so we're able to work out of there. But like right here, this is super, super, super ideal. Now a big question is going to be, well, I don't have a generator, I don't have a pressure washer, how do I service the vehicle? Now if you can look behind me, some of these apartment units have garages. So ask your customer, hey, is there an electrical outlet nearby? Do you have a garage that I can work out of? If you get lucky, you do. Inside there will be an outlet. But now what if that outlet doesn't work? What do you do then? Well, sometimes around apartment units, they'll have outlets. Not all of them, sometimes, most of the time they don't work, but that can also be a possibility. Other than that, you have to carry your own power. It is what it is. You can go cordless with a lot of things, with your vacuum and polisher, but it's gonna help to have a generator. A really affordable, great quality generator are the ones from Harbor Freight, the Predator. We have both the 3500 and the 2000, and they work great. We have no issues with them. You can probably find them used. Lex found his for $450. He had to fix like 1 or 2 things, and it's been working fine. And out like brand new, the 3500 is like $1,000. The 2000 watt generator is, I think, like $650. So they're very affordable relative to other similar higher quality brand generators. Now to recap all of this, it just comes down to communicating with your customer. You want to know all the details before you ever start driving to your customer's location. That way you know in advance, you're being proactive with your customers on what's going to take place. For us, we know everything for the most part that's going to take place before we actually go to the customer's location. The customer knows when they're going to pay. The customer knows that when we'll confirm the actual price. The customer knows how long it's going to take. The customer knows that the price might be increased based on the condition. The customer knows the type of, if we accept cash or car. We know if it's going to be an apartment or home. We know if there's going to be a gate code. Do we have to call? Do we have to text? Will they buzz us in? We know all these details because we just want to communicate efficiently with our customers to say, hey, like we just want to know on both ends, what do we have to do in order to make this a seamless experience, and what do we need from you in order to make this a seamless experience. There are going to be some where it's going to be a curveball, right? You ask the questions, you do everything right, and then the customer's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a gate code. Or, oh yeah, usually the gate is open to the neighborhood. I guess they closed it. The code is XYZ. So of course, even if you do all your due diligence, you will run into those situations where just something happens. And if that's the case, you just do your best to learn from it and continue forward. And there's so many different types of environments or locations, right? Because you have apartments, you have homes, and within the homes you have like really nice neighborhoods that require a gate access. You have some neighborhoods that have gate access but like it's always open. Then you have the really nice neighborhoods that have like 24/7 security at all times, and they have to like write you in and buzz you in and confirm with the customer. So there's various degrees of what type of location you're going to. On top of that, the biggest curveballs that we find are at work locations, meaning like at an office location. With those, you have to be more cautious of and confirm with the customer if you're allowed to be on the premises. Some office locations do not allow contractors, so to speak, to be on the premises. If they do, there's a designated area somewhere in the premises to do the work, not front and center in the main parking lot where all the residents and customers are walking by. They want to keep it nice, professional, clean. So oftentimes they'll move you away or kick you off altogether. Us, we've only been kicked off once, but we've been relocated twice, meaning, hey guys, like the security comes out to us and they're like, hey guys, you're not allowed to be here. If you want, you have to go to that side, and then we move on over there. So if you're at an office location, and trust me, it goes again with that thing where you'll get a better sense of what type of office locations allow or don't allow contractors to be there. Like for us, like the areas that I know, I'll always confirm, hey, just to be sure, are we allowed to be on the premises? Can you ask your office manager? Can you ask the whoever if we're allowed to be there? Because some offices just will be a bit more strict. We've never had an issue with apartments. The only time you'll get in not for the most part, the time you'll have an issue with an apartment complex is if you're doing the work outside the apartment units. Meaning, like, you know how you gotta, you enter the gate and now you're in the apartment complex. If you do it like in the parking spots of the leasing office, we've had one problem with that, honestly. The other times that I've done that, I haven't had an issue, but because it was outside the apartment complex and that's where the potential customers or future clients were the designated parking, they didn't like that. But because we were about to finish, they still let us finish. But that's the only problem we've seen. So, for the most part, it's going to be pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But just know that there's so many instances of different neighborhoods, of different office locations, of how strict some is other than others, that some will vary, but for the most part you should have a pretty easy time. So I'll end it right here. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, concerns about working at apartments. Hopefully you get the gist of it and you don't see as many errors and you can just get to the job site much easier than what we used to go through. So let me know those comments, questions, concerns down below. Again, February 19th, these shirts will be releasing, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one.